What? I don't, wait, what? How?
Because her name's so yes.
So,
I guess we're the same.
No.
height, but otherwise not.
I've never heard anybody compare you to Peyton Cook.
Well, I used to get credit all the time.
This is awful. And he was a very light. Okay, you went no tour for.
While you're right over here with this.
That's why I don't even look at you.
I know. I know, babe.
Let me start recording. Good morning. We are going to start a new story today called Stray. Sometimes I wrote it down as The Stray because I thought there was a the in front of it, but apparently there is not. So let me show you where that's at. You can either watch my screen today or open it in on your screen. But it should be the third thing down. So this is it. When you open it in Cami, which I already have opened. Okay, so if we take notes, you probably want to have your copy of the story open so that you can take notes and make notes in Cami. So I'll give you a second to do that. This story won't take long to read. It's pretty short. Okay, cool. Is Kiara here yet? It's working. I just needed to reboot. I had to do that too.
Here.
Kiara, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay, good morning. I need you to go to classroom and then open up the new story, The Stray, and open it in Cami.
All right.
Okay, everybody other than Kiara, do we all have the document opened in Cami? I know you don't because everybody else good? You're gonna use your headphones today? No? Okay. All right. You're gonna need them if you have to speak. All right, so anyway, this is a cute little story, and it's fairly short compared to the ones we've been reading. So the plan for this story is this. We're gonna read the story today, and if we have time, we will start on a graphic organizer for a question for writing a paragraph. We will finish the graphic organizer tomorrow, and then you will handwrite. Yes, handwrite, back in the Stone Age, paper, pencil. Oh my God. You will handwrite a paragraph. Okay. I have been told that by my supervisors that they want us to do that this week. So there you go. So we'll do that, finish up the graphic organizer tomorrow, start the paragraph tomorrow into Wednesday, finish up the paragraph, and then Thursday, Friday, we'll do multiple choice. You'll do multiple choice. Okay. All right. So here we go. So this is The Stray, and it's by Cynthia Ryland. And Cynthia Ryland, again, one of my favorite kids authors. If you haven't read anything by her, you should check her out. And this is just background for her. As a child, Cynthia Ryland never imagined that she would be a writer. Hold on. Okay, I am recording. I thought I paused it. Let me try again. As a child, Cynthia Ryland never imagined that she would be a writer. I always felt my life was too limited, she says, nothing to write about. At age 24, however, she found that her life did in fact contain the seeds of many stories. Her first book, When I Was Young in the Mountains, describes her childhood in the hills of West Virginia. Cynthia lived with her grandparents for 4 years in a tiny house without plumbing. The hardships she experienced are reflected in Stray. Since the publication of her first book, Ryland has written more than 60 children's books. And it says, unlike many writers, Ryland does not use a computer to write her stories. Instead, she writes by hand. Oh, perfect. On yellow legal pads. Perfect. As somebody who didn't grow up with computers, it took me a really long time to make that transfer from handwriting something to writing on a computer. And still, there are certain things that I need to handwrite out. Because there's a different process in your brain when you do that. It's true. All right, background for the story about animal shelters. Animal shelters take in stray and unwanted animals like the dog in Stray. Although they can seem crowded, noisy, and smelly, most shelters have the best interest of the animals at heart. In addition to caring for animals, many shelters provide education on the responsibilities of having a pet. Anybody ever adopt a shelter animal? Bella, you, Carl, you guys? You too, Zion? Yeah, I tried to, and then I can't even go to pet stores because I get too depressed. I can't go to zoos because I get zoo head. I get really depressed at zoos. So going to them really bother me because I want to let all the animals free. Don't roll your eyes at me. He can roll his eyes at me because I feel bad for the animals. Anyway, look at your puppy. No, I would not rather them starving. But when you go to New York City to the Bronx Zoo and you see a polar bear with the ribs sticking out and it's 95 degrees and 100% humidity, that's not where a polar bear should be. True, right?
Yeah, but if they were let go and they've been in the zoo their whole lives, they don't know how to hunt for themselves.
Understood. I still feel bad. It still depresses me that we have to live in a world where we have to cage animals. It's okay. You don't have to agree with me, Alex. I'm just saying that's how I feel about it. He's like really being mean right now. I know. Okay, here we go. Stray by Cynthia Ryland. In January, a puppy wandered onto the property of Mr. Amos Lacey and his wife, Mamie, and their daughter, Doris. Icicles hung 3 feet or more from the eaves of houses, and snowdrifts swallowed up automobiles, and the birds were so fluffed up they looked comic. The puppy had been abandoned, and it made its way down the road toward the Lacey small house, its ears tucked, its tails between its legs, shivering. Doris, whose school had been called off because of the snow, was out shoveling the cinder blocks front steps when she spotted the pup on the road. She set down the shovel. Hey, come on, she called. The puppy stopped in the road, wagging its tail timidly, trembling with shyness and cold. Okay, I underlined the word timidly, so you might want to do that because it is one of those words that come up on the side and it's already underlined. Oh, I did that before I posted it. Good job, Miss Jones. Anyway, timidly is in a way that shows fear or shyness. Doris trudged through the yard, went up the shovel drive, and met the dog. And trudge means to walk as if tired or with effort. You know, walking through 3 feet of snow, you have to trudge through it, right? You guys are familiar with that. Come on, Pooch. Where did that come from? Mrs. Lacey asked as soon as Doris put the dog down in the kitchen. Mr. Lacey was at the table cleaning his fingernails with his pocket knife. The snow was keeping him from his job at the warehouse. I don't know where it came from, he said mildly, but I know for sure where it's going. Doris hugged the puppy hard against her. She said nothing. So how does the dad feel about this dog? Hmm? Who's they? I asked, how does the dad? I asked about the dad. How do you know? Where'd that come from? I don't know where it came from, but I know where it's going. Okay. All right. No. Okay, I'll go back and read it. So if you go, stop talking. There's comes confusion about who said what in the story in here. These guys don't have their mics on. So if I go back up where she says, come on, Pooch. Everybody with me? And then it says, where did that come from? Mrs. Lacey asked as soon as Doris put the dog down in the kitchen. Mr. Lacey was at the table cleaning his fingernails with his pocket knife. The snow was keeping him home from his job at the warehouse. I don't know where it came from, he said mildly, but I know for sure where it's going. But I only asked about, so this is the thing. The reason why I'm pressing this point, Alex, is because a lot of times, many of you in the room and at home, right? You're asked a question and you answer it totally differently than what was asked. So if the question is, how did the dad feel? You should only talk about the dad in your answer, right? So a lot of times, I'm not trying to be a pain in the neck, but there is a difference. And you're right, both of them are like, ew, what's this dog doing in my house, right? Okay, but the question was about dad. Yes, Paige. Guys in the room, when you're talking, could you turn your mics on so people at home can hear the conversation?
I'm pretty sure the dad is okay with it
You think the dad's okay with it?
because he said, I don't know where it came from, but I know for sure where it's going.
Why would that indicate that he's okay with it?
Because I inferred that, because afterwards she hugged the dog, and I inferred that they were gonna keep the dog.
But it could also mean
Did anybody get that they're gonna keep this dog? Anybody else?
Should I?
I don't think so. Somebody at home saying something?
Yes.
Go ahead, who's talking?
I think that that means that because their father said, but I know for sure where it's going. I think he means that they're getting rid of it because they don't want to keep it.
Yeah, you know, he wouldn't say I know where it's going if he was gonna keep it. He's gonna take it somewhere, right? All right, let's see what happens. Maybe, let's find out. All right, where was I? Where did that come from? Okay, Doris hugged the puppy hard against her. She said nothing. Because the roads would be too bad for travel for many days, Mr. Lacy couldn't get out to take the puppy to the pound in the city right away. So does he want to keep the puppy? Nope, and the pound is the animal shelter, right? Okay. He agreed to let it sleep in the basement while Mrs. Lacy grudgingly let Doris, feed it table scraps. The woman was sensitive about throwing out food, and grudgingly means unwillingly, right? Or in a resentful way. So she gives the dog scraps and she feeds it, but she really doesn't want to. By the looks of it, Doris figured the puppy was about 6 months old and on its way to being a big dog. She thought it might have some shepherd in it. 4 days passed and the puppy did not complain. It never cried in the night or howled at the wind. It didn't tear up everything in the basement. It wouldn't even follow Doris up the basement steps unless it was invited. It was a good dog. Several times Doris had opened the door in the kitchen that led to the basement and the puppy had been there, all stretched out on the top step. Doris knew it had wanted some company and that it had lain against the door, listening to the talk in the kitchen, smelling the food, being a part of things. It always wagged its tail, eyes all sleepy, when she found it there. Even after a week had gone by, Doris didn't name the dog. She knew her parents wouldn't let her keep it, that her father made so little money, any pets were out of the question, and that the pup would definitely go to the pound when the weather cleared. Still, she tried talking to them about the dog at dinner one night. She's a good dog, isn't she? Doris said, hoping one of them would agree with her. Her parents glanced at each other and went on eating. She's not much trouble, Doris added. I like her. She smiled at them, but they continued to ignore her. They paid no attention to her. I figure she's real smart, Doris said to her mother. I could teach her things. Mrs. Lacy just shook her head and stuffed a forkful of sweet potato in her mouth. Doris fell silent, praying the weather was never clear. But on Saturday, 9 days after the dog had arrived, the sun was shining and the roads were plowed. Mr. Lacy opened up the trunk of his car and came into the house. Doris was sitting alone in the living room, hugging a pillow and rocking back and forth on the edge of the chair. She was trying not to cry, but she was not strong enough. Her face was wet and red, her eyes full of distress. Why is she crying? Because she's gonna have to send the doggy away. Mrs. Lacy looked into the room from the doorway. Mama, Doris said in a small voice, please. Mrs. Lacy shook her head. You know we can't afford a dog, Doris. You try to act more grown up about this. Doris pressed her face into the pillow. Outside, she heard the trunk of the car slammed shut. One of the doors opened and closed. The old engine coughed and choke and finally start up. Wait a minute. I got to reread that because that didn't make sense. Outside, she heard the trunk of the car slam shut. One of the doors open and close. The old engine cough and choke and finally start up. Daddy, she whispered, please. She heard the car travel down the road, and though it was early afternoon, she could do nothing but go to her bed. She cried herself to sleep, and her dreams were full of searching and searching for lost things. What is she searching for in her dreams? Yeah, it's like, really? It was nearly night when she finally woke up, lying there like stone, still exhausted, very tired. She wondered if she would ever in her life have anything. She stared at the wall for a while, but she started feeling hungry and she knew she'd have to make herself get out of bed and eat some dinner. She wanted not to go into the kitchen past the basement door. She wanted not to face her parents. She rose up heavily. Her parents were sitting at the table, dinner over, drinking coffee. They looked at her when she came in, but she kept her head down. No one spoke. Doris made herself a glass of powdered milk and drank it all down. Then she picked up a cold biscuit and started out of the room. You better feed that mutt before it dies of starvation, Mr. Lacy said. Do we all know what starvation means? Okay. Doris turned around. What? I said, you better feed your dog. I figure it's looking for you. Doris put her hand on her mouth. You didn't take her? She asked. Oh, I took her all right, her father answered. Worst looking place I've ever seen. 10 dogs to a cage. Smell was enough to knock you down. And they give an animal 6 days to live. Then they kill it with some kind of shot. Doris stared at her father. I wouldn't leave an ant in that place, he said. So I brought the dog back. Mrs. Lacy was smiling at him and shaking her head as if she would never, ever understand him. Mr. Lacy sipped his coffee. Well, he said, are you going to feed it or not? It's a cute story. Okay. So the description the father says of the pound is why I can't go to a pet store or a zoo. No, they're not that bad. I did go to a couple of them when I was looking for a dog about a year ago, and I didn't get them from a dog pound. So there you go. All right. So here's what we're going to do. What time is 8:22? So we have some time. So before you open up your copy, let me just open up my copy. So here is the graphic organizer for a paragraph, right? This should look familiar. Okay, so let's just go over the parts and the parts of the paragraph before we even look at the question. So you're going to have a claim statement or a focus statement where you turn the question around, right? Whatever the question is. Then you're going to have detail number 1 where we quote directly from the text. And then in the next box, you're going to explain how the quote that you got from the text proves your claim statement. And then you're going to do it again with a second quote from the text, word for word. And then you're going to analyze that or explain how that proves your claim statement. And then a concluding sentence. Does that sound familiar? Because it should. We haven't done one of these in a while, but you know. And I think maybe because we haven't done one in a while, maybe what I'll do is I will do this with you guys, okay? So let's look at the sentence. Huh? Or the question. Well, let's look at it. All right. So it says, when Doris cries herself to sleep and stray, what prediction do Doris and the reader, in other words, us, make about the dog's fate? Give 2 examples from the story that support your prediction. So do we know what a prediction is? What's a prediction, Akeem? Okay, what were you going to say? Yeah. Okay. What's a prediction, Bella? Turn your mic on.
An educated guess.
Right. A prediction is an educated guess. So in other words, when she cries herself to sleep, what guess does she make and what guess do we as readers make that's going to happen to the dog? Hakeem? It's probably going to die. It's going to be taken to the pound, right? Okay. What are you typing, Paige? Okay. So remember, anybody remember what I had you do with questions or tasks before we even get started? What did I usually have you do with the question as a strategy to help you? Hakeem? Well, before we turn it around, what did I have you do? Paige? Highlight what you need. Okay, so what do we need? We need when Doris cries herself to sleep and stay. What prediction do we make about the dog's fate? I'm going to highlight that. Well, no, because give 2 examples has to be highlighted too. All right. So I think right now I'm going to give you a second for you to split your screen so that you can see mine and have your document open as well. So the graphic organizer is right underneath where the text was in the stream. So Akeem was right. We do need to turn this around. So first of all, let's just talk about, I think we already said that she and we think the dog is going to get taken to the pound and die, right? And get put down, right? Okay. So how are we going to turn this question around? Anybody out in Zoom land? Let me give these guys a chance. Anybody in Zoom land want to try this?
Me, Haley.
Me. Haley, go ahead, Haley.
Doris cries herself to sleep and stray. Oh no. Doris makes a prediction. I don't know how to turn this around.
Okay,
Good.
okay. Actually, this one, you don't really have to turn it around so much. You could use it pretty much word for word. Paige, give it a shot. Turn your mic on.
When Doris cries herself to sleep and stray, she makes a prediction about her dog's fate.
Okay,
That could be the
which
first one.
is, make the claim, which is,
that her dog is gonna die in the pound.
okay, all right. But the question also asks about the reader too, so we're gonna add that in there. That's good. Okay, you got it. So let's just do this. So type as I type. When Doris cries herself to sleep and make sure you're doing stray correctly, capitalize, quotation marks, stray. We could say she and the reader predict that the dog will be brought to the pound and put down, right? And so while you guys are typing that, like I'm always trying to think a step ahead. So the next step I have to do is get a quote from the text, right? So I think the best thing to do when we go back to the text is try to find where she's crying herself to sleep, right? But is that the only place to look for proof? Because you need two examples, right? So I think for this particular question and this story, you could look at the parents' reactions, right? You could look at where it says, oh, the dog had to stay in the basement, let's just go see. Let's go see what it says when she's laying there. Yep.
Or when they describe
Or when they describe the pound would probably be the best place, but we got to go find that. Okay, so right now, is there anybody that still needs me to keep this screen up? Okay, go ahead. The rest of you, if you could go back to the text and try to find that part where they describe the pound, or if there's any other proof that we can use, because we need two pieces of proof. When you find it, underline it in the text.
on that one time where the guy says, I don't know where it came from, but I know exactly where it's going.
Okay, so you need to find that in the text and go underline it, okay? I would be able to use that as proof. Like the dad is saying, I'm not gonna let it stay here. I'm gonna take it somewhere where they're gonna take care of this. Are you typing? Are you done typing? Okay, so go back to the text. So does anybody else need my screen still up, or can I go back to the text myself? Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the text since nobody's saying they need this up right now. Okay. So there's probably lots and lots of proof. So this might be one. So this is kind of like when you do multiple choice and you're looking for proof, right? It's kind of the same idea. Did anybody find the part where they describe the pound? I think that comes at the end. Did anybody find the part where she was sleeping? So the part where the dad describes the pound is on the last page of the text. All right. Okay, what do we want to, let me hear some of your ideas. I circled 3 different things. So let me call on somebody. Carl, what did you circle or underline for your proof?
I circled where,
So what page you on?
the last.
The last page? Okay, so if you want to look at my screen, the last page is page 6 in Cami. And the dad says, worst looking place I've ever seen, 10 dogs to a cage, smells enough to knock you down, right? Okay, what else could we use to prove our point? Akeem,
I circled Dory's reaction.
what page in Cami, honey?
Um,
Page 5? So her reaction where?
when she turned around and said what? And I think her reaction because she thought that it was going to the
Oh, okay. So she might not know that it's gonna get put down, but she definitely knows it's gonna be taken away, right? So like if you know, you could always tweak your claim statement if when you go to find proof, like she doesn't know ahead of time that it might die. But you're saying her reaction, like what? Like you brought it back? Like I didn't think it was gonna be here. That could work. You could explain that. What else could we use? Bella, turn your mic on.
Outside, she heard the.
What page you on, my dear?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
4,
Page 4,
very
Tammy?
top. Yes. Outside, she heard the trunk of the car slam shut. One of the doors opened and closed. The old engine coughed and choked and finally started up.
Okay, that's page 5.
Well, yeah, sorry, it was
It's
on
okay.
I must have
All
not
right.
scrolled down. all the
Anything
way.
else?
I think there's
What'd
a
you
lot
circle,
more.
Zion? Oh, come on. You couldn't find anything, Alex?
I circled the,
I don't know.
I don't know where it came from, but I know where it's going.
That's also what
So
I.
right at the beginning of the story?
Page 3.
Yeah, I got that too.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so there's lots and lots of proof, right? As long as you can explain your proof, you can certainly use any one of these. So it doesn't matter to me, what one do we want to use?
Probably the ones that are easiest to do, so like the
Bella use.
and I don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
Okay, so so think about that. So I don't know if everybody heard Paige, but she said probably the one where he describes the pound and then the one where he says, I don't know where it came from, but I know where it's going, right?
I feel like
It's not gonna stay here.
explaining the
Which
pound.
one would be best to use first?
The one.
I don't know where it came from.
Yes.
In the order of the story, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to split my screen and I'm just going to copy. So if you look at my screen really quickly, on page 3 in Cami, I have that whole thing that the dad says circle. So I'm gonna copy that. Punctuation, capital letters, word for word, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I could never use this. With my screen, so that I can copy. Okay, so in that detail one box, I'm gonna copy that. Oh, I gotta show you funky stuff, but we don't have time to show you funky stuff today. I'll show you it tomorrow.
I didn't.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, guys, is I just wanted to get myself started for the second detail so that I remembered that we started it for tomorrow. Okay, But we're gonna run out of time. Okay, but what I would normally do if we had more time is I would finish copying my first detail, and since I've already picked out my second detail, I would copy that and fill that box in so it's done. And then I could just work on the graphic organizer after that, right? You can do it either way.
So we did finish this for homework,
So
or we're
folks at home, I don't know, the bell rang late this morning, so who knows when it's gonna ring now, but it's gonna ring in a minute or two. So make sure before you sign off that you get, or, you know, even if I sign off before you, get that first detail all the way copied. I don't know where it came from, you said mildly, but I know for sure where it's going. And that way we can start there tomorrow, okay? Yes, sir.
And this page was right. She did know.
Going away. It was going away. All right. So folks out in Zoom land at home, anybody have any questions for me? All right, I'm going to end the Zoom then, because I
Okay.
only have a minute left here. So have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.